Coming up on International Trade Focus, we shall take a look at the cocoa swollen shoot virus disease and its impact on Ghana's cocoa production and the livelihoods of cocoa farmers. Today, we are taking a closer look at a critical issue that is hitting Ghana hard, the swollen shoot virus and its devastating impact on cocoa production. Now, cocoa is the lifeblood of Ghana's economy, contributing around $2 billion annually and supporting over 800,000 households. But this swollen shoot virus is threatening the very foundation of this vital industry. The swollen shoot virus is endangering farmers' livelihoods and disrupting the global supply chain, affecting international trade and the chocolate industry worldwide. Join us as we dive into this crisis, explore its broader implications, and look for solutions. My name is Anna Spio, and this is International Trade Focus. International Trade Focus is brought to you by Gol, Good Energy, ADB, Truly Agric and More, Public Elegance, and Pedasi Valley Resort. So the impact that cocoa production and export has on Ghana's economy cannot be overemphasized, with cocoa being one of Ghana's primary exports and generating a lot of revenue for our economy. Any issue that affects the sector must be addressed. On today's edition of International Trade Focus, we are taking a look at the swollen shoot virus and the impacts that it has on the cocoa sector and cocoa farmers. Joining us in this discussion is the head of public affairs, Ghana COCOBOD, Fifi Wafa. The swollen shoot virus, we know that it's a canker that has been plaguing cocoa farms for years. Give us a brief background of this virus and the impacts that it has had on the cocoa industry.
Okay, so the swollen shoot virus disease is a disease that, my information is that led to the establishment of the Cocoa Research Institute at Tafo. It means that it predates the 1940s. It's been with us for a very long time. So when cocoa business started in Ghana, then they realized there was this virus. So the Research Institute, which we now know as CRIC, used to be the West Africa Cocoa Research Institute, WACRI, was established to find an antidote or an answer to this very virus and its impact. Fast forward, it has been with us. We still do not have a chemical solution as in treating the virus. So it's been with us for these number of years. The only solution known at this point is that when it happens, you have to cut the affected tree, because if you do not cut it, it helps with the spread. So the mealybugs that spread the virus take it and move it around, and then it spreads the virus on these cocoa farms and nearby farms. So it has been with us for many years. What has been happening is that the affected farms, hitherto you select the affected trees, you treat it so that it doesn't lead to the spread. But at a point in time, I think the policy changed where COCOBOD stopped treating it for the farmers, and rather we're supporting the farmers to treat it. It looks like that policy did not really help, and it resulted in the widespread of the virus. And if you go to the Western North, which hitherto was the biggest producer of cocoa, producing about 1/3 of the national production, it is hardly hit. Most of the farms have been devastated, and today we talk about 590,000 hectares of cocoa farms that have been affected by the swollen shoot virus disease. So that's basically what the swollen shoot is and its impact on the industry. Some efforts have been made to at least arrest the challenge, and then to make sure that we at least stop the chain of spread, and then also to start some of the affected farms. Just as I said, if you do not treat the farms, the spread will continue. But then if you cut it, you stop the chain of spread, and then you also start the farms. In some countries, what they do is that when they treat the farms, they do not plant again. But in our case, the plan is that the treated farms will plant them again because we need the land for the production. In some cases, the farmers were actually planting new seedlings in the affected farms. The unfortunate thing is that when that happens, it leads to the transfer of the disease to the newly cultivated cocoa. So yes, now going forward, the plan is that we'll treat the farms and then we'll cultivate new cocoa.
But is it seasonal? Or it's just...
It continues.
Wow.
It's like the viruses we know. Yes, like I think the most common one we can cite that example is coronavirus. It's on daily basis spreading. But if we're able to break the chain of spread, that is when you at least isolate the farms that have not been affected from getting affected. But if there's no treatment, what happens is that on daily basis, farms that have not been treated get affected. And that's really the challenge.
So let's take a look at the measures that COCOBOD has put in place and the effectiveness that it's been, because as you're talking about, it's something that once it hits, you need to cut off the entire tree. And the cocoa tree takes a number of years to grow. So yeah, let's discuss the measures that COCOBOD has put in place over the years.
Okay, so over the years, COCOBOD was isolating the affected trees because at the time the spread was not that widespread as we see today. So if the officers go to the farm and they identify that within the farm there's a particular area that the trees have been affected by the swollen shoot. So they identify those farms, cut it, and make sure that they apply arboricide to make sure the stems die, and then it does not allow the spread of the disease. It happened for a number of years, and at the time, COCOBOD was supporting the farmers to treat it. Around 2014, the policy changed, and the change in policy was that COCOBOD was going to provide seedlings to the farmers. So it was the responsibility of the farmers to treat the affected cocoa trees or the affected farms, and then the seedlings are given to them. It did not really help because when it strikes, even though the farm is affected, the farm still bears some fruits, even though fewer fruit compared to a cocoa farm or a cocoa tree that has not been affected by swollen shoot. So the farmers were reluctant in cutting, and then they kept it, and then it led to the continuous spread. What the strategy has been since 2019 is that every farm that is affected, COCOBOD, after agreeing with the farmer, would cut the affected farm. So we agree with the farmer first as a way of convincing the farmer. We believe that the farmers, that's a source of income for them. So asking the farmer to say that, okay, we are going to cut your entire farm, that's cutting the source of livelihood of that farmer. So there was some level of reluctance from the farmers. So COCOBOD pays 1,000 Ghana cedis per each hectare to the affected farmer. Another thing we realized was that there were farmers who were not the landowners. So at the time the cocoa farmer takes the 1,000 cedis per hectare and allows COCOBOD to cut, immediately cut it, the landowner says, because of reversionary rights, now the land reverts back to the owner and he does not want you to have the cocoa farm anymore. So we have to compensate the landowner in order to allow the farmer to start the farm again. So as we pay the farmer 1,000 cedis, we also pay the landowner 1,000 cedis. So depending on the size of the farm, in one instance, I remember the farmer had about 100 acres, so we paid the farmer 100,000. After paying the compensation, COCOBOD will cut the trees. When we cut these trees, because you need the stems to die, because even the tree that you've cut, the virus will still live in the stems. So we apply arboricide, and the arboricide is to ensure that the stems also die. After applying the arboricides, we plant plantain, because the virus does not affect plantains. We plant plantains in the farm, and then when the tree stems die, we plant the cocoa trees. Of course, the plantain also serves as a cover for the young cocoa trees because it needs a bit of a shade. Right. Without a shade, the trees may die. So it serves as a shade for the young cocoa trees and also as a source of income for the farmers. They've lost their cocoa farm, so at least they're able to harvest the plantain and feed on. And let me say, COCOBOD has no right to these plantains that are planted, even though COCOBOD, after cutting, will hire people to plant the plantain and then also hire people to plant the cocoa trees. They harvest it, and then the farmers are the beneficiaries of it. COCOBOD will also hire people to maintain the farms, and the maintenance of the farm includes weeding of the farm. And this is done for the cocoa farmer. We do that, and the expectation is that we must maintain the farm at least for a minimum of 2 years before the farm is handed over to the cocoa farmer. But until the time that the farm is handed over to the farmer, COCOBOD maintains these cocoa farms. Apart from maintaining the farms, any fruit or anything that grows in the farm is something the farmer is the one who has exclusive enjoyment over them. Right. So be it cocoa, yam, be it plantain, or you have snails or anything. The farmers are the people who are supposed to benefit from it. So we do that. Indeed, it's been very, very good. Of course, the weather sometimes creates a challenge for us. And the challenge here has to do with the fact that if it is very strong, some of the cocoa seedlings do not turn out well. So we have to go back and replant them, among other things. But then, as I speak, over 40,000 of them are ready to be handed over to the farmers. What this means is that apart from curtailing the spread, you also have a young cocoa farms that are ready to add to the cocoa stock we have. These young cocoa farms are also ones that are able to stand the diseases that affect cocoa. A lot more research have gone into the seedlings we produce these days. So they are better able to stand the diseases compared to what was planted 20, 30, 40 years ago. So these are the cocoa seedlings we are also planting. So this has been the strategy. Indeed, there were a number of farmers for Western North where we started this project from, who had migrated from different parts of the country, some from BA, some from Ashanti, some from the Krobo land and other places, who have moved to Western North. Because of the disease, they were no more having any cocoa coming in. So had to relocate back to their villages. Today, if you go, a number of these farmers have returned back and they have their livelihood restored as a result of this initiative that was introduced. And they have their cocoa farms. So yes, this is the policy that is being run at the moment, and it has been very, very useful in helping to restore cocoa farms that were lost as a result of the swollen shoot. There are still farms that have been affected that have not been treated, and the process is ongoing. But what we do is that with the cutting, we cut blocks. When I say blocks, I refer to a particular enclave. So when you cut that enclave, the entire farms that have been affected, at least you are assured that farms beyond that side that have not been affected, there will not be the transfer of the virus to those farms because that entire block that has the virus has been treated and they do not transfer. And that's what is happening at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned something that caught my interest, taking a look at how this has been like an ongoing plague or canker or whatever. You talked about how the recent seedlings or seedlings that you have now are in a better condition to withstand some of these viruses. My question is that Cocoa Research Institute was established mainly to take a look at this swollen shoot virus and find the way forward. Over the years, has there been any research advancement?
Yes. So one side is that from 1937 to today, there's no chemical that treats it. despite all the research that has gone into it. But what has happened is that at least they've been able to develop seedlings that can better stand the virus and other diseases. So yes, there have been some benefits that have been realized as a result of research by the Cocoa Research Institute. But unfortunately, we still do not have a chemical application that is able to treat cocoa swollen shoot virus disease.
Globally?
No, it doesn't have. In fact, I was part of a team that visited a research institute in Israel, and they were also looking into having a solution. As we speak, no such solution has been found.
The impact on yields. You mentioned how over 500,000 acres of cocoa farms are affected by the swollen shoot virus. So definitely it's going to trickle down to the yield, right? So can you give us some figures?
It is significant because if you look at about 590,000 hectares of farms that have been affected, that is significant. I do not want to put specific figures to say that this is the result, but if you look at, for example, say each hectare producing about 10 bags, and you multiply it by the number of hectares that have been affected, your guess is as good as mine.
On today's edition of International Trade Figures, we are taking a look at the swollen shoot virus and the impacts that it has on the cocoa sector and cocoa farmers.
We'll be back shortly.
On today's edition of International Trade Figures, we are taking a look at the swollen shoot virus and the impacts that it has on the cocoa sector and cocoa farmers. Joining us in this discussion is the Head of Public Affairs, Ghana COCOBOD, Fifi Wafa.
Let's take a look at promoting sustainable cocoa. It's become topical in the sector, and I believe that this swollen shoot and all of that also falls under it, because once there's widespread, obviously the beans are not going to be of good quality and all of that. So when it comes to addressing that too, what are some of the measures, I must say, that have been put into that side to make sure that, you know, we observe best practices as far as cocoa?
So the swollen shoot virus disease itself does not affect the quality of the beans. What rather happens is that the bean, you are unable to produce more. A sick, if I'm permitted to use that, a sick cocoa tree cannot bear as many fruits as you would expect from a normal cocoa tree. So in terms of the produce out of these farms or out of these trees is way limited. So it does not help. However, the actual beans produced, its quality is one we cannot in any way say that it is affected. Okay. But in terms of sustainability, you realize that sustainability have three cardinal legs to stand on: the social, the environmental, and the economic. And for me, I'll start with the economic bit. The economic bit is that the income of the cocoa farmer gets affected. Imagine a cocoa farmer who had about 30 hectares of a cocoa farm, and today that farm is no more as a result of swollen shoot. The income of that farmer is gone. So, for example, a farmer had, say, 20, and then 18 or 15 of hectares of that farm has been affected by swollen shoot. The income from the remaining 5 hectares would not be sufficient to sustain the farmer. Farmers are reasonable human beings. The money you make from your farm, that is what you use to feed your family. That's what you use to take care of everyone within the family. And part of it is invested in the farm. So in a situation whereby the farmer income has reduced, it becomes difficult for the farmer to have beyond feeding the family and then also spending part of the resources on the farm. It is human and it is reasonable to assume that if a farmer has limited income or resources, he will take care of the family first before, for example, you buy fertilizer or you buy chemicals to spray the farm. So when the income of the farmer is affected, definitely it also affects the farmer's ability to produce. And it leads to all manner of challenges the farmers face and the industry face. So yes, in terms of sustainability of the industry, I would say the swollen shoot has some rippling effect on the cocoa industry in terms of productivity and in terms of other factors. But even on the swollen shoot, with the indulgence, I would like to say that the over 41,000 farms that have been treated, the government has taken the decision to hand them over to the cocoa farmers. The expectation is that on the 28th of June, government will hand over these farms to the beneficiaries of the initiative. These are not only the only farms we've treated. There are several other farms at different levels which will hand them over to the cocoa farms, the farmers. The expectation is that at this stage where the cocoa has started fruiting, the farmers at least will get a little income from it, and it will help them to be able to maintain till it gets to its peak from 5 to 7 years, where they have the full realization of the crop from these farms. So yes, we'll hand over these farms, and the expectation is that in the next few years, it will add significantly to the production numbers of our country, and that will happen. The other farms we are treating, some are at the stage of cutting, some are at the stage of planting, some are a year old, some are a year and a half. The expectation is that going by 2 years' time, we can also hand over, of course, the farms we are starting today, but then others will also be handed over as we move along, depending on the stage these farms are here.
So have you employed any technology, or do you employ any technology when it comes to the curtailing of the solution?
So one of the companies that has been employed to help with the service delivery is actually using a technology of multiplying the plantain seedlings. Because when we started, we had to carry plantain seedlings across the country. Because just imagine if we're planting plantain seedlings on 40,000 hectares of land, the truckloads. And I remember when it started in Western North, we're even cutting plantain seedlings from Eastern region to Western North, considering the distance. And sometimes when it gets there, you are able to have all of them in good condition to start fruiting and doing well. So there's a company called Afarenik and Kumak, which we hire their services, and they do the multiplication of the plantain suckers. And it's amazing. They do quite significant work. And if you go to Western North, there are several people who have been employed as a result of this work. If you go there, in fact, the first site of it, you might think that it's a major processing factory that is sited at Boaco. And there are several persons who are beneficiaries of this program. So apart from the fact that this is helping restock our tree stock, it is also providing employment to people on the ground, and these people are working. Now you have people who are doing the cutting, you have people who are maintaining the farms, those who are treating, there are those even who are doing the hoeing for the planting, and several jobs have been created as a result of this initiative. I must add that initially COCOBOD used funds from the cocoa proceeds for the operations of COCOBOD, but going forward, a facility was procured from the African Development Bank, and that is what is being used for the exercise. Indeed, there's some ongoing conversation between the World Bank to also support the initiative in terms of advancing the facility to us. Because if you look at the number of farms that have been affected, you need a reasonable resources sizable enough to treat it. Because the thing is, if you don't treat it today, it will wipe the entire industry away. It started just in Western North, part of Western South, but now it was actually Western North and Eastern region. You find it in Western South, you find it in Ashanti, you find it in BA, and even recently, places in Central region, we've seen swollen shoot. So there's every reason to vigorously deal with it today because it stares us in the face that if you do not take action and deal with it immediately, it will wipe the entire industry away.
So how is it spreading? Is it cross-contamination? Because I'm trying to understand how it's spreading.
Well, the scientists tell us that there are some insects that carry them, the mealybugs, called the mealybugs, that carry them. So on the affected tree, it picks it, moves to the next tree, it touches it, and it infects it with it. Just like mosquitoes, a mosquito may bite me, come and bite you if I have malaria, you get it. It's the same process. So it carries it from one tree to the other, from one farm to the other.
So from one region to another region?
There is the belief that, so probably you carry pots, people carry pots from the farm, they carry stuff from one farm, and they take it to the another farm. One of the things we advised farmers not to do, for example, is to, on their own, go to your farm, for example, pick pots and go and plant this, the beans in a different farm or the seedlings in a different farm. You do not know the diseases in that farm we are carrying to the other farm. And you know that regions, you might say that, oh, Ashanti region and Western North. There's actually a border around Ashanti and Western North. There's a border between Western North and BA. So there are borders. So that's how it spreads, yes. And day in, day out, one person may even have a farm about 4 or 5 kilometers away. He leaves this farm and he moves to that farm. The things we carry from the farm to the other farm, it leads to the spread. Yeah.
So obviously this has become an issue, it's spreading, and there are measures that are being put in place. So it has definitely affected the quantity of cocoa that we produce. So how are we going to ensure that we are still able to produce more? Because currently, as we stand as a country, cocoa is one of our primary exports. And without it, you know, I mean, so many issues are going to crop up. It's going to affect the economy and all of that. So whilst we are finding measures to the swollen shoot, trying to curtail it, how is COCOBOD ensuring that we are able to increase our production, swollen shoot aside? Okay,
so we must admit that the fact that the swollen shoot would definitely have a negative impact on our production. So yes, it has affected the quantity we are able to produce among other factors. But what is important to note is that I've shared with you the rehabilitation program that is ongoing. And the ongoing rehabilitation program would in few years add to the productive farms that are able to improve our production. So there's been a temporary effect, and that's what it is today. But going forward, this negative effect we see will rather turn to be a positive. Positive in the sense that, so the farm that was, say, giving us 5 bags, 3 bags, 4 bags, you cut it and you will not have those 5, 4 bags today. But in 3, 4 years' time, that farm, because you have improved seedlings and the younger farm, well treated, that farm may be giving you 20 bags instead of the 3, 4 bags you were seeing prior to the treatment of it. So for today, people can talk about the fact that, well, our production numbers are dropping. Yes, it is. But why are they dropping? Is there a way forward? Yes. Those farms have been treated. Those farms are coming on board. Those farms are going to yield fruits. And that is how we solve our problem. So yes, we have a challenge today, but then we are creating opportunity out of the challenge we face.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, currently production has gone low, but in the future, going forward,
in a few years' time,
we yield even more than we are doing now to make up for what we've lost. This sounds scary because it means that for the next 2 years,
of course, it is not the only thing we are doing. In the meantime, we are also employing what we refer to as the productivity enhancement programs. The productivity enhancement programs are strategies ensuring that you do not do your normal production numbers if you are doing the already things you were doing. So this year, for example, COCOBOD is pruning all cocoa farms for cocoa farmers, which hitherto, I think in 2020, something similar happened. The expectation was that farmers themselves were going to do it. We've realized that some farmers still expect the COCOBOD will come and intervene on their behalf. Yes, so we are pruning the farms for them. We've introduced hand pollination. We are helping the farmers to pollinate the farms, and pollinated farms, pruned farms would definitely yield more or give you better yield compared to farms that have not. There are other innovations that are coming in to ensure that despite the challenges we face, these interventions come in to augment the existing arrangement to give you better yield. Aside
the reduction in production, there's also a challenge that we face, that is the pricing. I believe that a few years ago, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire came together to say that yes, we produce a chunk of the world's cocoa, so let us have a say on pricing, and it was pushed out there. What are some of the challenges that have come up, and what is the way forward?
Well, we started a living income differential as a means of improving the farmer income. This was at a time where the world market price was hovering around 1,900, 2,000, 2,001, 2,200. So the living income will at least push you to about 2,400, 2,600. Today, the story has changed. It has changed because the weather pattern has been very bad in recent months. The El Nino effect is hardly felt in Ghana, in Cote d'Ivoire, where production numbers have fallen behind. So the world market price has seen a sharp increase. So yet it is good today, but we believe that it is just because production numbers have not been great. Of course, Cote d'Ivoire is also dealing with swollen shoot like we are doing it. We're dealing with. So the production is now, and then price is up. The LID has served us well at a time where we're looking at $1,900, $2,000. But today the price is very good. And the expectation is that even though the market price we see today would not be the same, we will of course not deceive ourselves into thinking that seeing $7,000, $8,000, and at a point $10,000 a ton, that is going to be the price. Certainly it will fall, but it will not fall to the levels we saw. Because I remember during the conversations about the living income differential, there were industry players who felt that, well, 2,000 was a good price. Indeed, there are those who even advanced the argument to the effect that asking buyers to pay 3,000 or 4,000 for a ton of cocoa was ridiculous. It was not practical. It was not possible. Today, same persons who advanced that argument are paying $5,000, $7,000, $6,000 for a ton of cocoa. So, in the midst of our challenge of low production, I think nature has found a way of bringing us to the realization that indeed cocoa can be bought at a higher price and it will not collapse the industry. Rather, what will collapse the industry is the poor price farmers were treated to for some number of years from 2017 up to the latter part of 2023. So yes, the price now gives us some hope and better prospect going into the future.
So, Fifi, thank you. We are about wrapping up, but before we go, yes, last question. Speaking to farmers, and I believe you've touched on it. So, speaking to farmers, some concerns that were raised is that, yes, indeed, COCOBOD is putting measures to curtail and all of that, but there are other farmers too that are still waiting, you know, for COCOBOD to visit their farms and do the needful. So, what are the timelines for these farmers that are waiting?
Well, the expectation is that every farm that is affected, COCOBOD will lend the support or will reach out. And indeed, any farmer who has a challenge should contact the district office of the Cocoa Health and Extension Division of COCOBOD and then let us know. And then the officers will take the necessary steps in helping the farmers who find themselves in that situation. The plea, however, will be that if a farmer is still contemplating whether or not to allow the officials to treat their farms, is to allow, because if you do not give them the permission to treat the farm, yes, today, tomorrow, the next year or two, or in the next few years, you may be able to get some pods out of it, but eventually you lose the entire farm. At this point in time, there is support for you to be able to rehabilitate your farm and then have your cocoa produced for you in the next few years. The good thing is that today we have seedlings that start bearing fruit just after a year. So in a few years' time, you may have your cocoa farm back producing for you. But if you do not do that and you lose it entirely, it will not be the best decision for you as a cocoa farmer. It's challenging to lose a farm which you've spent a number of years to establish. But the point is that if we do not also give room for this intervention to come in and save it from entire loss, the eventual result will be that you lose all the investment, and this is the time for you to give opportunity so that you get the necessary help you require as a farmer.
Thank you. Do you have any final words aside what you just said?
Cocoa swollen shoot has given us a challenge. It's human nature that challenges will come. It has affected production, it has affected farmer income. But there is an intervention that has come in to support the farmers. Evidence is there that farmers have had their farms treated. Support has been given to them in terms of the treatment grant that is given to them. Their farms have been restored. These restored farms are coming in to augment our production numbers, to improve our productivity as a country, and then also to restore the farmers who have lost their livelihood. Within this challenge, there's an opportunity, and there's every reason for us to take advantage of this opportunity.
Right. Thank you very much. Fifi Boafo is the head of public affairs at the Ghana COCOBOD. We took a look at the impacts of the swollen shoot virus and how it's affecting farms or the cocoa industry in the country. We'll be back shortly. Today, we've seen the challenges of the swollen shoot virus firsthand, heard from affected farmers and spoken to COCOBOD about their efforts to fight this crisis. The virus threatens Ghana's cocoa production and has major implications for the global chocolate industry. Addressing this issue requires a combined effort from local communities, government, international organizations and all relevant stakeholders. My name is Anna Spio. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's edition of International Trade Focus. Join us same time next week for some more. International Trade Focus is brought to you by Gol, Good Energy, ADB, Truly Agric and more, Public Elegance and Pediasi Valley Resort.